Hi class, Mrs. Calvi here. I just wanted to do a quick review on 1.1 and some of the skills that we went over in class. Now 1.1 was talking about integers. We did talk about integers and their opposites. So remember, integers are all of the numbers on a number line. So if I have a number line here, and my 0 is in the middle, don't forget my positive numbers are to the right, my negative numbers will be to the left. So the one thing you always have to look at when they give you a number line within an assignment, you have to look at the intervals. Are they going by ones? Are they going by twos? Are they going by threes? Are they going by fives or tens? All right. So this one I'm going to make as going by ones. So -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. All right. So again, you have to make sure you know what intervals that the number line, the tick marks. So remember, these little marks, they're called tick marks. So my tick marks here, they are going in intervals of 1. You just have to make sure, because sometimes they do go by twos. The typical intervals are ones, twos, fives, and tens. All right. So we talked about opposites. So if I have the integer 5, the opposite of 5 would be -5. So you have to remember, opposite numbers are the same distance from 0. So if I were to go and graph, and remember, graphing is actually plotting a point on the number line. So I am going to graph +5. So I'm going to plot a point. I'm going to also graph -5. So now I know that these are opposites because they are the same distance from 0. So if I were to do my hops, if I'm over at -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It took me 5 units or 5 hops to get to 0. So let's see about +5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Took me 5 hops to get to 0 or 5 units. So +5 and -5 are considered opposites. All right, so let's try a different one. So let's say we had -13. The opposite of -13 is going to be +13. Now remember, your opposite numbers are on different sides of your number line. So the negatives are on the left, the positives are going to be on the right. All right. Now, one thing we also talked about was different terminology. We've talked about the term increase and decrease. So if something increases, that's going to be a positive. So let's say the temperature, I'll just abbreviate, increased by 8 degrees Fahrenheit. So how would I represent that as an integer on a number line? That would be a +8. So increasing something is a positive. Remember, most of the time you're not going to see that positive. You're just going to have the number itself or the integer itself. All right. So when we increase something, that is a positive. If we decrease something, if something decreased, if the temperature decreased 4 degrees Fahrenheit, a decrease is a negative. So that would be represented by -4. All right. So increase is a positive, decrease is a negative. Now, if we were talking about money and you were at the bank and your bank account, there was a transaction, and let's say that transaction was a -6. Now, what does that mean? So that means you either took out $6 or you withdrew $6. So when you take money out of a bank, that is called a withdrawal. Okay. Now, if your bank account transaction, let's say it was 15. Well, we know that that's a positive. We don't have to have that positive symbol in front. So that means you perhaps deposited, which means you put money into your bank account. You deposited $15. Okay. So A withdrawal means you're taking out, and that would be a negative. A deposit is a positive, and that means you're putting in. All right. Now, we also talked about less than, greater than, or equal to. So I want to do a quick review on that. Okay, so let's say I was comparing these two numbers, and I wanted to know what symbol goes in the middle, less than, greater than, or equal to. So the number I have on the left here is 2,364, and I'm comparing that to 2,346. All right. So one thing you can do, the easiest thing to do is line them up vertically, one on top of the other. And when you're using a whole number, meaning no decimal, you are going to shift everything to the right to line up. So I'm going to line them up. It just so happens they have the same amount of digits. I'm going to start with my ones place. Okay. I'm going to look here. So I see 4 is less than 6. And then for my tens place, I see that 6 is greater than 4. My hundreds place, I have 3s, and my thousands place, I have 2s. Well, these are the same and these are the same. So now I'm down to these two numbers. So now I know that looking at this, that 64 is greater than 46. So then I know 2,364 is going to be greater than 2,346. All right. So that's one way you can do it also if you line them up together. So let's say we had one that had 3 digits. So let's say I had 156 and I was comparing that to 42. Remember, to line them up one on top of the other, you want to shift them all the way to the right. All right. Well, right away here, I have a hundreds place and I don't have anything in my hundreds place for 42. So I know that 100 is going to be greater than anything less than 100. So I know that 42 is going to be less than 156. All right, let's just work with decimals for a second. All right, so let's say we were comparing these two decimals. With decimals, I definitely recommend lining them up one on top of the other. Now, when you line up decimals, the decimals have to be lined up. So I'm going to have to, I always put the number with the most digits on top. So I'm going to list this one first, 0.106. I'm going to list the next one, 0.05 underneath. You have to line up the decimals. You must line up the decimals, okay? Now, being I have an empty space here to the right, I'm going to put a placeholder, which is 0. So now I'm going to go just looking at place value for place value. So here, I'm going to start right to the right of my decimal, my tenths place. So I have 1/10 and 0/10. I looked at my whole numbers. Those were 0, so I jumped right to my tenths place. So with my whole number, they were both 0. I can't tell which is less than or greater than. So now I'm looking at my tenths place. I have a 1 and a 0. Well, 1 is definitely greater than 0, so I already know that 0.05 or 5 hundredths is less than 106 thousandths. All right. So when you are working with decimals, line the decimals up and you are going to start from left to right comparing. All right. Left to right comparing. All right, class, that's it for this review, and I will be talking to you soon.